Hey, what's up guys? Sig Designs here, and today we're going to be talking about some new dynamic settings. And I've already got a floor and a sphere in here. The floor's just got a simulation tag, or rigid body tag on it, and the sphere has a rigid body tag on it. And all I did to do that was right click, go to simulation tags, add a rigid body tag. So as most of you already probably knew that, if we just play it with a rigid body tag on it, the sphere does become dynamic. However, it just falls. It's pretty boring. And for some projects, maybe whenever you press play, you want the sphere to launch or move left to right or side to side or do something different rather than just straight fall, because like I said, that can be kind of boring. So to fix that, once we have the rigid body tag on here selected, we're going to come down to the dynamics tab and check on custom initial velocity. And initial linear velocity here, these read from left to right, so X, Y, and Z. So if we just change one value, let's say we turn the speed to, say, 80. Not quite sure which way this will move. Okay, so you can see it lunge forward a little bit, just slightly. Alright, so maybe that wasn't enough, so maybe we'll make this 500. Okay, now you can see it flies a little bit better. Alright, so we'll start at this side of the screen. You can see it moves. We change this, say 600. Okay, now it kind of launches up a little bit. It goes up in the air. Say we wanted to go at like a 45-degree angle this direction. Okay, so now you can see it. Now it has rotation on it. Okay, now if we were to, let's say, as soon as the sun freezes, bring this value down to 0, bring this to, say, 720. Now this sphere is going to try to spin 2 full rotations before it hits the ground, and then the momentum keeps it going. So you can already see there, that makes things a little bit more interesting, and obviously there's a lot more stuff you can do now, knowing how to, do this and whatnot. So there you have it. Also, what we can do is enable and disable dynamics at certain times. So if I go ahead and don't want this to be dynamic the second the animation starts, and to turn dynamics off and have them come back on at a certain frame, we're gonna right click on the enabled box, so untick that, and then we're gonna hold Control or Command if you're on Mac and right click on enabled, and you'll see we have a red light. Second we press play, okay, it still has that rigid body tag on the sphere, but as you can see here, it's grayed out, meaning that it's inactive, nothing's going on. Say we wanted to get to frame, say 150, 160, we want this to become dynamic. So the frame before we want it to become dynamic, we're going to Control click on enabled again, so that the program knows that it still needs to be, we don't want it dynamic. So at 159 it's not dynamic. Let's go to frame 160, make the change, so let's enable it, and if we do something like that, uncheck or check a box off like I just did right there, you always need to Control click again to tell it. So I checked on enabled, and I'm going to Control right click again on enabled. Now if we rewind it and play it back, you'll see the sphere just sits there, but once it gets to frame 160, then it plays on. So that's a good way to keep things from happening when you don't want them to happen, because sometimes we don't always want the sphere or whatever to just start doing whatever when we're not ready for it to. So it plays through, it gets to frame 160, and then it becomes dynamic again. Yeah, we've got some other stuff in here, like, in case you didn't know, bounce and whatnot. So if we bring the bounce down to 0% and bring the friction up to 1000, say, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here, but I'm guessing Ball won't bounce hardly at all. If anything, it may just stick. So let's find out. And let's just go ahead, scoot this keyframe down a little bit, make this playback a little bit faster. I don't know if I grabbed the right one. Okay. All right, and as you can see there, the ball it rolled for a second and then it just stopped. So it plays and then it just sticks. So if I turn the bounce down on the floor and increase the friction to say 500 or 1000%, I'm guessing this sphere, when it becomes dynamic, is gonna fall and stop the second it hits the floor. Okay, so it still rolls a little bit and then stops. Turn the friction down to say 0% on this, and the sphere, make the bounce about 500%. Let's bring the friction down to 20% on the sphere. Let's see what happens. And while I'm at it, so we don't have to keep waiting, I'm going to get rid of all these keyframes, and to do that I'm going to Control Shift right click, and that erases all of our keyframes. So we're back to a fresh start. And whoops, I forgot to check on enabled here. Alright, so there you can see the sphere, it gets launched and then it just it spins on the floor because there's hardly any friction there, and it just keeps sliding. And it'll probably just keep sliding actually. Alright, so we have that. We've learned that. Another thing is, real quick, that I want to talk about is, I'm just going to do this real quick and simple, is another thing you guys might be having a lot of problems with is, say you want something to fill up with whatever. Like, what we're going to do here is I'm going to press C. First of all, I'm going to get rid of this dynamic tab or tag on the sphere. I'm going to press C on this to make it editable. I'm going to come down to model mode, select, let's go to ring selection, shift, click. Okay, make sure we have that all selected, and let's just get rid of this top half. Okay, so now we've got this basic kind of bowl object. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about is this right here. If I take this, take a cube, just to kind of switch it up a little bit. Let's size it down. And I'm going to switch views here to get a little bit better view. Position it pretty much right over the center of this thing. It's still a little bit too big. Okay, now I'm going to pull it straight up. Alright. If I go ahead on the sphere and just right click, add a simulation tag, go to collider body, logically you would think this cube is going to fall straight into this. You know, it's concave, you know, there's nothing there. So you'd think it's going to fall, well, it won't fall until I put a simulation tag on there. You'd think it's going to fall right in, but watch. Did you notice that? Whenever we press play, skip ahead a few frames, look at it. It's like there's nothing there and it's still hitting something. It's not actually going in the ball. That's because even though we just edited this and it appears as though there's nothing there, the system isn't able to read that. It still is seeing this sphere as a whole. So the objects, any objects that interact with it, are going to interact as if the top half was still there, which it isn't. We don't want that effect. So the quick little fix for this is to go to the simulation tag on the sphere here, or whatever we edited, and change under the collision tab, change the shape to static or moving mesh. It doesn't really matter for this. If we change it to static mesh, whenever we play it, you'll see now the program, the system reads this as it appears, you know, it'll interact as it looks, so it actually falls in. So it'll fall in, do whatever, and that'll work with anything. Now, once again, we change this to automatic, play it, it won't fall in. Trying to think what else if there's anything else I should talk about. Oh yeah, the mass of objects. If you want to change the mass of something, basically just go to the tag, go to mass, use custom mass, and then just type in a mass right here. So if we make this like 500, press play, and whoops, I need to change this back. Did this for the wrong thing. Make the cube 500 and make this static mesh. That cube just became a lot heavier, and maybe I can demonstrate this better if, let's just say, let's do this real quick and easy real quick. Scale this down as soon as the sun freezes. Go to MoGraph, cloner. Let's drag the sphere into the cloner. Let's make these dynamic. Let's go to cloner, object, grid array, and let's bring the count up to 15 by 8 by 14. Just something nice and random there, just so we got quite a few spheres. Spread them apart and stretch them out. Alright, I'm going to drag this up, okay? And if we just press play, you're going to notice they kind of all shoot out, and that is because I don't have these quite spread out far enough, and they're actually inside each other, as weird as that sounds, and that's impossible, so the system doesn't know how to handle it. Now they should just fall straight down. There we go. Okay, so to better explain my point, I'm going to make another sphere, and let's just make this a little bit larger. Set it just above this mass group of spheres. So simulation tag, add a rigid body tag to this. Custom mass. Let's put a mass of 1 on here. Let's press play. See what happens. Okay. Not a whole lot really, as you can see. Now, let's take this sphere. Let's go to custom mass and bring this up to say 500. See what happens. Okay, so the sphere falls much faster, as you can tell, and it has a much bigger impact. And that brings up another point that I'd like to talk about real fast. Another little quick tip that'll help you out. You notice every time when I go back and play this, the simulation is running fairly slow, and it's actually going wireframe right now because there's so many particles that it has to calculate. And that's the main reason why it's running slow, is it's having to do these calculations. And if you notice, every time I start this over and play it back, it's playing back the exact same simulation. The spheres are all rolling the same way, whatnot. It's going to happen the same way every time. However, the system doesn't know that. The system, the program thinks that it has to calculate this in real time every time. So every time we start this over and play it again, the system has to calculate all the movement, position of the spheres, every dynamic aspect of the simulation in real time. And a lot of the time this can become very frustrating when you're trying to make changes and adjustments when it plays back so laggy and not so smooth. You know, it's really hard to exactly see what's going on. So to kind of help fix that, what we can do is, first of all, I'm going to bring down the frame so this won't take so long. Let's go to Edit, Project Settings, go to Dynamics, go to Catch, and we're going to bake this. Basically, by baking, the computer is going to go through, it's going to take all this information from this simulation and it's going to store it. And whenever it has all this information stored, the computer has it right on hand where it can use it immediately. It knows where everything needs to be at what point in time. And basically this will speed things up. Hopefully, I mean, even though I'm recording, hopefully this won't be quite as laggy. It'll play back a little bit better. Alright, so you can see that did help a little bit. Played back a little bit smoother, and we get a better idea of kind of what's going on here. Now granted, I'm recording right now, and I got a couple other programs open, so it's still running a little bit slower for me, but if I wasn't recording, this would be fairly smooth, and you can see it's running back a little bit better. So if you're getting real laggy, if you're doing a simulation with a lot of particles, it's becoming real laggy, I would suggest you try that. Try baking the catch. It'll have all the information, the system will have all the information stored, and it'll know what it needs to do quicker rather than have to calculate this as it happens, and you'll get smoother playback whenever you do this. For the most part, like I said, I'm recording, so not seeing a big difference, but definitely helps. One last thing I want to stress though, after you bake a simulation and you've got it how you like it, or maybe you want to make some future adjustments, make sure after it's been baked that you clear the cache. If you do not clear the cache, you will not see nor be able to make any changes. So if I left that baked and tried to go in here and change the dynamics of the sphere or whatever, you wouldn't see them, and you know, that can really screw you up. Just make sure when you bake it, you get what you want, you clear it, and you go from there. So if we play it back, you can see it's not playing back quite as smooth. So by baking it, it did help a little bit. So I think that'll cover it for this tutorial, guys. I hope you found some really useful tips in here that you may have had questions to, or didn't quite understand. If you guys have any suggestions for future tutorials or have any questions about this specific tutorial, leave them down in the comments section down below. I'll do my best to get back with you guys and help you out any way I can. So I really appreciate the time you've taken to watch this if you made it this far. And as always, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would love that a ton. And yeah, so I'll see you guys later. That'll do it for this tutorial. Peace out, guys.